This is the Game Forum. I'm Zach,
And I'm Lindsay.
and this week we're talking about next gen graphics.
So, to start off, there's been a little bit of concern and I guess a little bit of disappointment out of the last Xbox showing where they showed off the first gameplay of next gen graphics. And with this, I think so many people were just expecting, pretty much just photorealistic quality for every single game and just to blow everyone away. And I do think that there will be some games like that, but I kind of don't think it's going to be the norm. I think as far as most graphics on games go, we're starting to kind of hit a bit of a plateau. I do not think that we're going to end up seeing as big of a jump in graphics and fidelity in games as we did from like the last generation with the PlayStation 3 and Xbox 360 to the PlayStation 4 and Xbox One, as we're going to see in this jump in graphics from the PlayStation 4 and Xbox One to the PlayStation 5 and Xbox Series X. And a lot of that just has to do with capabilities and time for development. What do you think about some of this stuff, Zach?
Yeah, so I do agree. With the PS4 and the Xbox One, games are really starting to come out and be super impressive. We're seeing that with The Last of Us Part 2, Final Fantasy VII, Ghost of Tsushima, and even the Mafia remake. And then there are some games that are on the Xbox that do have very impressive graphics. The Halo Infinite that game's going to look impressive. The Forza Horizon series looks great. The Forza Motorsport series looks great. So with current gen, they're really hitting that edge of we figure out what it takes, how we can push these systems. And starting next gen, it's definitely going to feel like a step back in some areas because with the what the PS5 is capable of and what the Series X is capable of, they're going to be able to enhance a lot of these development cycles that are not locked behind. Well, we have to sacrifice frame rate for resolution, or we have to sacrifice, the 4K down to 1/800p or 1800p for it to hit a stable 30 FPS. And I feel like that's what's going to go away when we move to next gen. We may not see games that are insanely huge or incredibly beautiful, but they'll perform better, and that there'll be concessions that will come with, like with Final Fantasy VII, you have to go through those little, squeeze through the hallways and stuff. Like that's a loading screen. That's designed to load up the next set of assets. We won't be seeing that as much, if at all, in next gen.
Yeah, I definitely think a lot of the focus for next gen has been placed on graphics, but a lot of the actual hardware differences will be on essentially like giving you a much better gameplay experience. Like it'll be able to load in, much bigger assets much faster. So you'll have much more open world games. You won't be locked behind these loading sessions where you're crawling through something or have to get in an elevator while the rest of the level loads around you. Stuff like that will give you a much different gameplay experience going forward, and I think that'll be really good. But I do think we're going to see a lot fewer just incredibly good graphics games than we might expect for the launch of these next gen systems. Because really, as you said, as they're pretty much optimizing the current generation of consoles is still fairly powerful. I mean, if you look at some of those games, like they look good, especially with the new stuff leaked about the Mafia 1 remake. I mean, that looks really good, especially for current gen.
Yes.
And as the technology progresses going forward into the next generation, it'll be a lot more focused around things like lighting effects, texturing, and we'll definitely start getting into that photorealistic section. But it's not really what I would think of when the console first starts. It's going to take developers a little time to start getting used to it. So we'll probably see, I'd say, minimal improvements to begin with. But then as things continue to go on, it'll really ramp up But while that's going on, we'll find ourselves in a very different gameplay mechanics and, no load times, very low load times, and much bigger, vaster levels and stuff around us as more of a gameplay mechanics upgrade than a graphical upgrade, at least at first.
Yeah, one thing we do need to think about is that with first party studios on Xbox's side and PlayStation's side, that they've had the systems a lot longer, where I'm assuming, than third party developers. So there might be launch exclusives, for those platforms that do look impressive, that are taking advantage of the system, hardware, and we'll just have to see. Sony hasn't really announced anything yet. Xbox hasn't shown any exclusives, so we don't know the full power yet. I'm assuming that like if Horizon Zero Dawn is a launch exclusive, it's going to look incredible. Halo Infinite on the Series X is going to look incredible. The rumored Fable reboot is going to look incredible. And there's for the exclusives, there's going to be a lot of improvements. But for third-party games, those might take a year or two before they start like really utilizing, especially with the Unreal Engine. That actually isn't going public until the first half of next year.
Yeah.
So you're assuming that some developers already have access to it now, because when they said public, I think that's like for like anyone can use the engine, much like anyone can use Unreal Engine 4 currently.
Now, looking at the Xbox side of next gen graphics specifically, do you think that we're going to see Xbox lagging behind PlayStation a little bit due to the fact that they're pushing their whole ecosystem? Because they said there will be no next gen games exclusive to the Xbox Series X for at least the next, 18 months? Because to me, that makes it sound like they're going to be, essentially cross-playable between the Xbox One and the Xbox Series X.
Yeah, so that is very consumer friendly. That is consumer first. People that just picked up the One S, and they don't want to buy the Series X or the rumored Series S, which is a smaller, cheaper next gen system. The naming convention on this is very confusing, but if someone were to have bought the lesser system recently, they're not going to feel left out. A game that is coming out next year is still going to be playable on their system, which is good for them. But that's bad in the long term because there is potentially going to be games coming out on the PlayStation 5 that are exclusive to the PlayStation 5 that are going to be incredible. And the one thing that Xbox is suffering right now is with games. And they kind of shot themselves in the foot at least in the 2 to 3 year range by promising that everything is going to be on every console. Meanwhile, Sony could be like, well, hey, we're launching with Horizon Zero Dawn 2, and then we got Spider-Man 2 coming out in fall of 2021, and they look incredible. And that's really going to hurt Xbox unless they have some deals with second-party systems. Maybe they got something lined up for it. Maybe they do have an exclusive to the Series X. They just haven't announced it yet.
So I guess one more thing I want to bring up about the Unreal Engine 5, and this is what a lot of other games are going to be based on. This is a little bit more technical, but still pretty important going forward. Unreal Engine 5 is pretty well the bones that a lot of new games are going to be developed on, and it's based around the new PlayStation and Xbox having vastly upgraded SSDs with much faster load times. And what this means is a lot of the games are going to end up having a higher level of fidelity for graphics on texture. One of the things that is really important about this is the ability to load in the amount of data quickly while you're moving around. So in their demo, it shows, a lot of rocks. It shows all the, billions of triangles for each of the little segments, which is essentially going to start making the actual models smaller than the pixels on your TV, which, while you're playing it, will give you an extremely high level of fidelity in the graphics. This will also affect some of how the lighting ends up working. With a new light diffusing system, it'll give you a much more natural lighting effect. And lastly, they're going to give you the ability to essentially import models directly from other programs like ZBrush to where you don't have to run it through certain amounts of compression, keeping its full level of detail. In total, these elements are really going to add up to something of movie quality. Instead of having to take an asset, compress it down to what the game is able to handle, we're going to be looking at fully functional details that would be of a movie-ready quality in video games going forward, or at least the possibility of it. I don't think every developer or studio will end up doing this, but at least now the possibility is on the table. So I would say it will take a couple of years before the graphics really start getting up to what we would look at as next gen. But I think a couple years into this cycle, we will start seeing fully photorealistic games as a norm, at least from AAA studios. What do you think about next gen graphics? Tell us in the comments below. And until next time, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.